On the night of February 19th, 2024, at 11:47 p.m., Officer Thomas Garrett of the Silver Ridge, Nevada, police responded to a disturbance call at an abandoned property on the outskirts of town. What should have been a routine check turned into one of the most disturbing cases ever recorded on police camera. The recording, which leaked months later through unofficial channels, shows a sequence of events that defies any rational explanation. The Silver Ridge Police Department denied the authenticity of the footage, but forensic experts confirmed that the video shows no signs of digital manipulation. Thomas Garrett was 34 years old at the time, a 12-year veteran with an impeccable reputation. Married and a father of two, he was known for his calm and methodical approach to crisis situations. That night, he was alone in his patrol car, conducting night patrols in a rural area known locally as Dead Man's Stretch, a stretch of road where at least 7 people had disappeared. In the last 3 decades, the call came through the dispatcher at 11:12 p.m., reporting strange lights and sounds coming from an old industrial facility that had been closed in 1987 after a fatal accident that killed 4 workers. The property in question was a former meat processing plant that operated between 1962 and 1987. Historical records show that the site experienced a series of workplace accidents, including amputations, fatal falls, and, in the final incident, a structural collapse that trapped 4 men in a cold storage chamber for over 18 hours before their bodies were recovered. Since then, the property has remained untouched, surrounded by a rusty barbed wire fence and faded private property signs. Local residents avoided the place, and there were persistent stories of strange sounds, apparitions, and an oppressive feeling that overcame anyone who approached too closely. Garrett's body camera activated automatically when he exited the patrol car. The recording shows the officer walking through the open gate, which should have been locked. His flashlight cut through the darkness as he approached the main building, a 2-story structure with stained concrete walls and broken windows. The audio captures his steady breathing and the rustling of his jacket as he moves. At 3 minutes and 20 seconds into the recording, Garrett stops abruptly. "Dispatcher, I'm on location," he says into the radio. "Gate was open, going to do a perimeter check." The reply crackles back. "Copied, 12-4. Keep us updated." Garrett circled the building along the east side, where the camera recorded its advanced state of decay. Graffiti covered the lower walls, most of it incomprehensible symbols and phrases in languages that no one could later identify. At 6 minutes, Garrett's flashlight illuminated a rusty metal side door, slightly ajar. He approached cautiously, one hand on his gun still in its holster. "Silver Ridge Police," he announced loudly. "If anyone is inside, identify yourselves now." There was no response, only the sound of wind passing through the broken structures. What happened in the next few seconds has been dissected by paranormal investigators, skeptics, and enthusiasts for months. The camera captures Garrett pushing the door open with his foot. The rust creaks loudly, a sharp sound reverberating in the night. The door opens to reveal a narrow corridor plunged in absolute darkness. The officer's flashlight scans the interior, showing peeling walls, a floor covered in debris, and at the far end, another door. It is at this moment, at 7 minutes and 8 seconds, that something unusual happens in the audio. A voice, almost imperceptible, seems to whisper, "Thomas." The voice doesn't come from the radio. It doesn't come from outside. It seems to emanate from the corridor itself. Garrett freezes. "Hello?" he calls, his voice now carrying a note of uncertainty. Nothing. He enters the corridor. The next 4 minutes show Garrett slowly advancing down the corridor. The temperature, according to later camera data, drops from 52 degrees Fahrenheit to 38 in less than 2 minutes, a drop that cannot be explained by external environmental conditions. The officer doesn't seem to notice immediately, focused on examining every corner and shadow, but at 11 minutes and 30 seconds, he stops again. "Did you hear that?" he murmurs. seemingly to himself. The camera captures nothing but the sound of his own breathing, now noticeably faster. He continues forward, approaching the door at the end of the corridor, a heavy wooden door with a symbol painted in dark red, almost black, that looks like a mix between a skull and tribal symbols. Experts in Native American cultures who analyzed the engraving identified elements of the symbol as possibly related to Navajo and Apache legends about entities they refused to name directly, referring to them only as those who walk in the skin of another. These creatures, according to mythology, are humans who practiced black magic and acquired the ability to transform into animals or assume the appearance of other people. They are considered an absolute taboo, and speaking about them is seen as attracting their attention. The presence of this symbol at an old factory in Nevada, far from traditional tribal lands, has raised disturbing questions about who or what may have occupied that space. Garrett reaches for the doorknob. The camera captures the moment with brutal clarity. His fingers touch the cold metal, and immediately his hand recoils as if burned. "Christ," he whispers. He examines his palm with the flashlight, but there's no visible mark. Hesitantly, he tries again, this time gripping the doorknob firmly and turning it. The door doesn't budge. Locked. He takes a step back, assessing his options, when the voice returns. This time, there's no doubt. The audio captures it clearly, in a hoarse, unnatural whisper. "Thomas. Thomas Garrett." The voice seems to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. The officer draws his weapon immediately, the flashlight mounted on the gun now providing a more concentrated beam of light. "Who's there? Identify yourself now." His voice is firm, but the camera picks up a slight tremor in his hands. He scans the corridor behind him, then turns his attention back to the locked door. It is then that something impossible happens. The door, which seconds before was locked, begins to open slowly, creaking on its rusty hinges. No one is on the other side. No visible hand pushes it. It simply opens, revealing a darkness that seems deeper, more absolute than should be possible. Garrett's flashlight should illuminate the interior, but the beam of light seems absorbed by the blackness. "Control, I need backup here," Garrett says into the radio, his voice now clearly tense. The radio crackles, but no clear response comes, only static. He tries again. More static. The camera records his indecision, the training battling the primal instinct to flee. Professionalism wins. He moves through the door. What the camera shows in the next few minutes has been intensely debated. The image becomes grainy, distorted, as if some kind of electromagnetic interference were affecting the equipment. Shapes move in the darkness, but are not clearly defined. It could be debris, shadows, or something else. The temperature continues to drop. The audio captures the sound of Garrett's breathing now, forming a visible mist. "Jesus, it's freezing in here," he murmurs. The room he entered appears to be an old processing chamber, with metal hooks still hanging from the ceiling, rusted stainless steel tables lining the walls, and in the center, something covered by a dark, rotting tarp. Garrett approaches cautiously, his flashlight focused on the covered object. He reaches out his free hand and pulls the tarp back. What's underneath causes him to recoil violently, a curse escaping his lips. The camera captures only a glimpse, a mass of bones arranged in a complex circular pattern, with what appear to be skulls of various animals, horns, and in the center, something that looks disturbingly like a human skull. Before Garrett can react, all the camera lights flash simultaneously. The recording shows a second of total darkness, then returns, but something has changed. The room looks different, the angles slightly off, the shadows deeper, and there's something else, something that no technical analysis has been able to satisfactorily explain. In the corners of the image, humanoid shapes seem to be present, but when the gaze focuses directly on them, there is nothing there, just an empty wall. Is it a presence perceived only peripherally, a trick of perception, or something genuinely anomalous? The debate continues heatedly among researchers. The voice returns, but now in multiples. Several voices whispering at the same time, all saying the same name. Thomas. 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 They overlap in a dissonant chorus that sends shivers down the spine of anyone listening to the recording. Garrett spins in circles, gun in hand, trying to identify the source. "Show yourselves! Now!" He's shouting now, his professional control beginning to crack. The voices don't stop. They begin to laugh, a low, guttural sound that echoes unnaturally in the confined space. The laughter doesn't sound human. It's as if multiple throats are producing the sound simultaneously at slightly misaligned frequencies. What happens next was rated by most viewers as the most disturbing part of the recording. One of the metal hooks in the ceiling begins to swing, even without wind or apparent touch. Then another, and another. Soon, all the hooks are swinging in perfect sync, creating a rhythmic metallic creak that blends with the whispers and laughter. Garrett backs away toward the door he entered through, but when his flashlight illuminates the exit, it's no longer there. In its place, there's only a solid concrete wall, as if the door had never existed. He runs to the wall, hitting it with his free palm. Solid, real, impossible. "No, no, no, no," Garrett murmurs, panic evident in his voice now. He turns, sweeping the room with the flashlight and the gun. The hooks continue to dangle, the voices continue to whisper, and then, on the periphery of the flashlight's light, something moves. It's not a shadow, it's not an optical illusion, it's a definite bipedal form, but with the wrong proportions. The legs are too long, the arms hang too low. The head is angled in an impossibly awkward way. The form moves with a trembling, unnatural gait, like a video playing at a slightly wrong speed. Garrett points the gun at it and shouts, "Stop or I'll shoot!" The figure doesn't stop. It keeps moving forward, slowly emerging from the shadows towards the light. When the flashlight finally fully illuminates the shape, what the camera records has been a source of nightmares. For everyone who has seen it, what should be a human face is a contorted mass of features, as if someone had mixed characteristics of a person, a deer, and something completely unidentifiable. The eyes are white, without pupils, but clearly focused on Garrett. The mouth opens in an overly wide smile, revealing rows of teeth that shouldn't exist in a human mouth. And when it speaks, the voice is a perfect imitation of Garrett's own voice. Thomas Garrett, badge number 247, married to Michelle, father of Sarah and Jake. The officer fires 3 shots in rapid succession. The sound is deafening in the confined space, the flashes momentarily illuminating every corner of the room. The entity, or whatever it is, shudders from the impacts, but doesn't fall. Instead, it seems to melt into the shadows like paint running down a wall. The shots ricochet, creating sparks on the metal walls. When the echo dissipates, there is only silence. The voices have stopped. The hooks have stopped swinging. The room is dead and quiet. Garrett is hyperventilating, the camera capturing each rapid, shallow breath. He checks the gun's magazine with trembling hands. He still has ammunition. For almost a full minute, nothing happens. Garrett remains frozen in place, slowly spinning in a circle, the flashlight and the gun following his every movement. His mind is clearly trying to process what he has just witnessed, logic battling the impossible experience. It is in this moment of calm that the temperature begins to rise again as quickly as it had fallen. In a matter of seconds, it goes from below freezing to approximately 70 degrees. Relief is visible in Garrett's posture. He lowers the gun slightly, exhales deeply, and turns to look for an exit. And that's when he sees it. The door he entered through is back, exactly where it should be. He doesn't hesitate. Garrett runs toward the door, the camera shaking violently with the movement. He grabs the doorknob, twists, and pulls. The door opens easily. He rushes back into the hallway, which now seems brightly lit compared to the darkness he just escaped. He doesn't look back, moving quickly down the hallway toward the exit. The audio captures his heavy breathing, quick footsteps, and, disturbingly, a final whisper that seems to come from inside his own head. "We know where you live, Thomas." The voice is so clear that audio experts confirmed it couldn't have come from an external source. It was literally superimposed on the recording as if originating from the recording point. Garrett emerges from the building at full speed. The camera shows the exterior, the normal, quiet night, the stars visible in the sky, his patrol car exactly where he left it. He doesn't slow down until he's inside the vehicle, doors locked, engine running. Only then does he stop, hands gripping the steering wheel, head down, breathing as if he'd run a marathon. The camera is still recording when he finally picks up the radio. "Control, this is 12-4, leaving location, no suspects found, property secure." His voice is surprisingly controlled, considering what he just went through. The dispatcher replies, "Copied 12-4. Return to base." Garrett doesn't respond, just puts the radio back and drives away. What happened in the following weeks adds layers of mystery to the incident. Thomas Garrett returned to work after 2 days off, citing the flu. He didn't mention the incident to anyone in the department. The recording was automatically archived in the system, like all body camera footage, and could have remained buried in the digital files indefinitely if it weren't for an IT technician who was doing routine maintenance 3 months later. Jake Morrison, 28, an information systems specialist, was reviewing corrupted files when he came across Garrett's recording. Curious about the corruption in the metadata, he watched the video. What he saw disturbed him so much that he immediately showed it to his supervisor. The department's reaction was swift and decisive. The recording was classified. Morrison was transferred to another position and instructed to sign a confidentiality agreement. Garrett was placed on compulsory administrative leave and underwent psychological evaluation. Official reports indicate that he was deemed fit for work, but colleagues noticed changes. He became withdrawn, avoided night patrols whenever possible, and, according to his wife in an unauthorized interview years later, began having intense nightmares. He would wake up screaming about things in the shadows, about voices calling his name, about white eyes peering through the windows. The family installed elaborate security systems in their home. Extra locks, motion-activated lights around the perimeter. But the story didn't end there. The recording leaked 6 months later through an online forum dedicated to paranormal phenomena. No one knows who posted it. The account was anonymous and couldn't be traced. Within 48 hours, the video had been viewed by over 2 million people. Analyses began immediately. Skeptics pointed to possible explanations. Pareidolia audio effects, where the brain interprets random noise as familiar patterns like voices. Camera lens distortions creating visual illusions. Even the possibility of an elaborate prank using holographic projections. But for every skeptical explanation, there were counter-arguments. The temperature drop was recorded in the camera's metadata. The gunshots were real, confirmed by ammunition records. Paranormal investigators made pilgrimages to the site. What they found was disturbing in its own right. The old factory was exactly as it appeared in the video, including the graffiti on the walls and the symbol painted on the door. But when they tried to locate the specific room where Garrett had his encounter, they couldn't. Floor plans of the building didn't show a room of that size or configuration in the area where Garrett was. Even stranger, soil samples from inside. The room showed chemical anomalies, abnormally high concentrations of iron oxide, and traces of organic compounds that didn't correspond to any known meat processing method. The bone structure that Garrett briefly discovered was never found. Local residents, when pressed, revealed stories they had kept secret for generations. The land where the factory was built had been considered sacred and forbidden by local tribes long before any white settlement. There were warnings passed down orally about not entering certain areas after nightfall, about creatures that could perfectly mimic human voices, about places where the veil between this world and the other was thin. A Paiute elder, speaking on condition of anonymity, said his grandparents told stories about a group of people who practiced forbidden magic in that area in the late 1800s, rituals that involved sacrifice and attempts to cross over to the other side. He declined to elaborate, saying only, "Some doors, once opened, never fully close." The case of Thomas Garrett has become a modern urban legend, debated in podcasts, amateur documentaries, and online communities. The officer never spoke publicly about the incident. He retired from the department in 2025, citing health reasons, and moved with his family to the other side of the country, specifically to a highly populated urban area, far from any isolated land. Those close to him say he still can't stay in completely dark rooms and sleeps with the lights on. His eldest daughter, Sarah, casually mentioned in a social media post that her father checks all the locks on the house multiple times before going to sleep and has installed security cameras at every corner of his property. The old factory was demolished in July 2025. Officially, the demolition was carried out due to structural safety concerns. Unofficially, there was pressure from several local Native American communities and residents who reported an increase in strange activity in the area after the video went viral. During the demolition, workers reported multiple unusual occurrences, equipment malfunctioning for no reason, workers hearing their names being called when no one was around, an oppressive feeling of being watched. 3 workers resigned within a week. A supervisor was found unconscious at the site with no visible injuries or clear medical explanation. He woke up 14 hours later with no memory of what had happened. When the demolition was finally complete and the rubble removed, what was found in the ground beneath the foundation raised more questions than answers. Excavations revealed a network of tunnels that were not in any official record of the building. Some tunnels were only large enough for a person to crawl through. Others were spacious enough to stand upright. The walls were covered with more of those disturbing symbols, painted in a substance that later tests identified as a mixture of animal blood, ash, and unidentified minerals. And in the deepest tunnel, almost 20 feet below the foundation, they found human remains. Multiple individuals. Carbon dating suggested the bones were at least 150 years old. Authorities declared the site a possible historical cemetery and halted all work. Local tribes performed purification ceremonies but refused to publicly discuss the meaning of the bones or tunnels. An anthropologist who examined the remains observed something unsettling. The bones showed signs of peri-mortem trauma, cut marks, and fractures, consistent with extreme violence, but also post-mortem modifications that made no sense in any known forensic context. Some bones had apparently been polished, others carved with the same symbols found on the walls. The person or persons responsible for these modifications had detailed anatomical knowledge and had performed the work with deliberate precision. The site was permanently sealed off in November 2025. Concrete was poured over the entire area, creating a solid slab 10 feet thick. No sign marks the spot. Officially, it's just an empty lot on county property, but if you ask the locals, they'll tell you to stay away. They'll talk about strange lights seen at night hovering over the concrete, about sounds that seem to come from underground, about how animals avoid the area completely. Not even birds land there. And if you're foolish enough to visit at night, bring someone with you because you might hear your name being whispered from a place where no mouth should be. The body. Camera recording remains one of the most compelling pieces of evidence of paranormal phenomena ever recorded, or one of the most elaborate hoaxes ever perpetrated. The debate continues. Technical analyses have failed to definitively prove forgery, but neither have they been able to confirm absolute authenticity. It exists in a liminal space of uncertainty, just like the creature Garrett supposedly encountered, something that exists on the border between the explainable and the impossible. Between the world we know and what we fear may be waiting in the shadows. Thomas Garrett is 36 years old today. He rarely leaves home after dark. When asked by a persistent journalist if the video was real, his answer was simple and terrifying. "I know what I saw, I know what I still see, and I know he knows my name."